Hi, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great Vera question, and that is, how do I understand what is emotional abuse when you're in a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath? In other words, can you please go into more depth about what this is or what this looks like? I think that's a great Vera question. So we are zooming in and understanding this today. So as we're saying, it's very difficult. Once you've been the victim or target of mental, meaning of the mind, your thoughts, your vision, your dream, your ability, your intellect, once you've undergone mental or emotional, which means of your feelings, your energy and motions, what passions you, what gives you motivation. When you've been a target of mental or emotional abuse, it is mean to take advantage of these for a negative or adverse or an outcome that is to inflict suffering in its many sundry ways. So, and realize that that part of the aspect of mental and emotional abuse is the reflex of the body and then the mind and then the spirit to sort of go into a shutdown mode while emotional or mental abuse is happening. Just sort of the energy sort of leaves the body. People feel that they have ghosted themselves, that they've just sort of had a quick energy depletion, and it just feels almost maybe like they are paralyzed. This is, as Pete Walker talks about in his book From Surviving to Thriving. He talks about this as the fight, flight, or fawn mode, where you basically go into an inability, a freeze, where you're like a deer in headlights and you have an inability to think, feel, or command yourself. You go into sort of like a witness protection program, and then the body goes into shutdown mode. It feels all of a sudden then you might not belong, you fit in, you maybe feel isolated, you feel almost too terrified to feel, you're too scared to act. It's one of these sort of OMG moments that gets you stuck, stopped in your tracks, unable to process. You then land in confusion or bewilderment or apathy or a number of reactive states, which does not mean that you are weak, of poor character, stupid, slow, less than, of a third-rate person. All the sundry part of the cruelty of mental and emotional abuse, that will be the outcome. Sort of the abuse of your feeling, the abuse of your ability to think, the misuse of your ability to think and process and be empowered and own the truth. So it is a misuse of these. So those inner guides, those inner compasses or inner gears, if you will, become temporarily locked up, in my view. In other words, you might not be able to believe that this is happening. I think the body, in mental and emotional abuse, the body goes into a disbelief or a shock mode. I cannot believe this is happening. I cannot believe my husband did this. I cannot believe my business partner did this. I cannot believe my brother did this. I cannot, that your parent did this, that this is your caregiver, but yet they are the ones who are plotting your demise, who are contributory to this. So a lot of people, it just does not compute. They then come into a cognitive dissonance where, in order to survive or make it through, they have to adapt by being agreeable or just sort of becoming a puppet or really codependent, which means you have to give up everything and you have to live in denial of the abuse in order to keep the relationship there. It becomes a reliance or a dependency feeling that your life is dependent on them being okay or them being happy with you, accepting and approving. So it becomes really part of this intermittent reward and sort of punishment. So people end up feeling very punished by this person. What constitutes emotional or mental abuse? Humiliating you, making you feel stupid, ridiculing you, pointing the finger at you, making you appear, something is wrong. This is a tactic. It does not have anything to do with reality, but it is a facade that they will hang on you and treat you and gaslight you with enough regularity and repetition that the body does not know any difference. It sort of goes into witness protection program, and because they are shocked, stunned, in disbelief, they go into sort of what you might consider, what psychologists might consider dissociation, just sort of temporarily just sort of checking out, feeling numb, inability to breathe, feeling almost, a feeling of life or death, an existential loss of self. But yet you are still there. So there's a certain mechanism that goes into shutdown mode and really becomes disempowerment. It's kind of like, rather than running on your all your cylinders, you're running on a generator or backup pack. You're running on a generator system, which is not your regular operating system. You're running on almost like, in other words, if all the lights were to go out and you were on a generator by default, a sump pump or whatever, that's kind of like, I would say, the internal or mental climate becomes. It becomes sort of a low energy, disempowered, very much like a backup system. It takes a lot of energy, really depletes it. It's not meant to be there for a long period of time. It's meant to get you through a crisis. But this generator sort of keeps running the show. It leads to a lot of exhaustion. I can't make it. Life isn't worth living. All the cards are stacked up against me. I am unworthy. I am unlovable. I am on. People then begin, defining themselves by what they are not rather than what they are. So they lose really then where they belong. They lose their I am as an aspect or an outcome of emotional or mental abuse. They lose a vision of the future, meaning they don't feel that they have a chance. Things are stacked up against me. The only way is to then they then get into a very much of a normal or a one-track vision, and then they feel their survival is based on this person or this person's happiness. It becomes an erroneous thinking or an erroneous or flawed thinking pattern, and as a result. So humiliating, making somebody feel awkward, making them feel that they're out of place when they are not. You are not this, you are not that. Negating you. You are not this, you are not that. Your accomplishments, null and void. What you have done, not important. Who you are makes no big difference. You are really just sort of there as a crutch or a supply to stroke their self-esteem. The problem with emotional and mental abuse is usually that it is the other person's mission to come out on top. This is the play out of the insatiable need for power and control. These people will resort to these tactics, mental and emotional abuse of the feelings and of the cognitions. Criticizing, basically trying to shred you up, render you helpless or hopeless. You don't have a chance. They will shut down a communication channel before it is even open. They'll make sure that you are rendered helpless. This is part of their tactics. Accusing and blaming. Everything is always your fault. Things that are they will assign blame. You provoke this, so it's all on you, and everybody else is in the perception that they are the golden child or whatever that they are trying to protect. Oftentimes in mental and emotional abuse, in family systems, you'll see the scapegoat and then the golden child. The golden child is perceived that they can do no wrong. They do wrong, it is not perceived. They have done this, it is not perceived. It is it creates a real, environment of pathology and sort of denial and sort of living in an altered sense of reality, which is really is attempted to be at the control of someone who wants to be in control or power over that. When in actuality, there is not that. So if you're the accusing, the denial, and the blaming. In other words, there's always somebody who is going to come out looking bad. There's always a making of, in mental and emotional abuse, it is, the outcome is to cause harm or to cause damage, which is disempowering, causes people then, to feel alienated. In other words, there must be, for people who have had their boundaries violated, they then interpret this as, well, there must be something wrong with me. So they then assign a permanent negative value to themselves as a result of this behavior. But then that is so painful that they push it down and then develop, different coping mechanisms in order to endure. People pleasing, becoming overly attached to the abuser, placating them to see if maybe now it is okay to be healthy. When of course the answer is always no, it is not. Once people engage in people who are narcissistic or psychopath, these traits, these personality types are very resistive to change, which means these people do not change. They, this and this happened. Oh yeah, we can change after that. These people do not. They're often, and they don't have that ability to sort of be humble or humility enough to be on the level and empathy to say, I am sorry. You will not get this. So oftentimes people then end up feeling, because of the extreme, because of the extreme or intensity, that there must be something inherently wrong with them. So they then accept this, and then, because this is oftentimes too painful to acknowledge and validate what has happened, they end up going into shutdown mode. And you're unable to perceive it. So what are the other signs of emotional neglect and isolation? They will attempt to frighten, control, or isolate you. Frighten, control, or isolate you, meaning single you out. You're not like the other one. Something is wrong with you. They will keep this in the focus as part of, this is a tactic of mental and emotional abuse. To frighten, control, and to isolate you, which means you are not keyed in. How do they isolate? Through being exclusive, or, the entitlement means they don't have to share, they don't have to communicate with you, that they can block you out, talk about you behind your back, engage in triangulation, which means, telling negative things about you to another in order to alter and change the perceptions and behaviors of another towards you. So there is this strength of numbers. This is seen time and time again in families, marriages, politics, business, you name it. If you're dealing with these players, this is what they will do. This is part of their tactics, which is that of triangulation, trying to get power over you by bullying up, this is just what they do. The emotional bully, to sort of break you down. This is what they do. It is what emotional and emotional abuse is. So you must understand this as it works in the dynamic. So, and people oftentimes are then buying into the fact that this person is an authority for some reason, or superior, or all that for some reason. So they do not want to confront. They do not want to, or have an inability to have open and honest communication, especially when it comes to things that are unfair, because they will not unequivocally own up or see something wrong with what they have done. And instead, they will keep others feeling that you deserve it, or that your mistreatment or your abuse is warranted. That is not an excuse. But at the hands of an abuser, it is rationalized and normalized. It is considered okay. It is considered how it goes. This is how it's going to be. Put up and shut up. This is how they nail the nail in the coffin. They continue to make you believe that you deserve this negative treatment. So people then end up getting the double whammy. They cannot see what is happening. They cannot see clearly, and they do not have oftentimes a support system, which makes it very difficult to change something which you cannot understand. So you must understand and see, but oftentimes it is too difficult to see and acknowledge and validate. It's so painful. After I did this and this and this, why would I be treated this way? It is not your fault. This is what they do. So they're meant to undermine your self-esteem. Why do they humiliate? Why do they negate you? Why do they not give you credit where credit is due? Why do they not give you eye contact? Why are they not inclusive? What are they not in the open? Because their tactics are meant to reduce your self-esteem. Because if you are rendered ineffectual, then it just makes it easier for them. Everybody who is kind of, who is calling, who does not settle for this is perceived as an obstacle. You are in the way. This couldn't be further from the truth. You are not an obstacle. You are not in the way. You are perceiving and perceptive of reality. And so it's usually very harsh, which means it's beyond what the situation would call for. But they will oftentimes illegitimize your feelings, needs, wishes, desires, behaviors, or your communication ability. So that's part of the emotional or mental abuse, is that they will undermine your feelings, meaning that they are to be rendered insignificant, unimportant, not real. They are minimized or degraded, which is to understand that this is part of emotional and mental abuse. So not only is it upfront, but they will continue to reinforce this mental and emotional abuse to keep you separate from the ability to stand in one's power. This is part of their tactics. And something that you can never sort of emerge from. There's this sort of ongoing, meaning, no, it is just you, it is who you are. You are dumb. You are da-da-da. You are, there's going to be something negative that they are then trying to assign. This is called throwing somebody under the bus, acting with triangulation, with unfairness, and unethical and lack of integrity. This is just what it is, but they do not want to see it, believe it, or will not own it. That is part of their personality disorder. And so it's very, very pervasive. So to understand that if you have felt this imbalance and this tension, this oftentimes is a result of mental and emotional abuse. This is what it feels like. It's very difficult to communicate when it is made, calling it out. So, and you've been so dehumanized. So what is also mental or emotional abuse? Dehumanized communication, not giving you eye contact, not giving you more than a few words. How's your day? Fine, thank you. And then that's all you get. You do not get acknowledged and validated. They will cut you off. This is a very subtle form of a way that they will then pick a passive-aggressive fight. This is a fight that might go on for months, years, decades, or generations that are part of this. To them, it is nothing. Why should you feel this way? You're the cause of this. Your feelings are not important. So people then begin to feel that they are not important, unreal. I don't exist. I don't fit in. This is part of the isolation that occurs as a result of emotional abuse. So people feel singled out, not only isolated, but then this also becomes what is known as social withdrawal or alienation. Social withdrawal, which means just feeling that you need to check out, go into witness protection program out of self-preservation. This is known as social withdrawal. It does not mean that you're socially inept. It means your body went into emotional hibernation to keep you away from the bad, to keep you away from the bad guy, to keep you away from the threat, to keep you away from the emotional saber-toothed tiger. So this is an automatic process. It doesn't mean that you're socially inept. It just means that you are trying to withdraw from an unhealthy or very harsh and dysfunctional emotional or mental system, relationship, or dynamic. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that the videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace in, peace out, peace be with you, and have a beautiful day.